really is just a great privilege for us to have David and Josie here with us. And like I said, David and I go all the way back to our childhoods. Our families go back even further than that before we came along even. So I just got to visit with them a little bit tonight at dinner and catch up some. And I want to encourage you, if at all possible, to get a chance to shake their hands and encourage them here. They're just getting, so you said like 2 weeks into this, out raising support? Yeah, praise the Lord. So we got them while they're all fresh and full of spit and vinegar still. Praise God, that's great. But we really want to just encourage them. And I, just even from the little bit I've heard already about the work, I'm just super excited about what God's doing. And I'm just so grateful for anyone who's willing to just go where the Lord says to go and walk away from a much more comfortable life with a lot more money and things that could have been here. But instead, they're going to do something that's eternally valuable. And someday in heaven, we're going to sit around and meet the people we're going to hear about tonight and shake their hands and sit down around the table. And that's going to be a good day. I'm looking forward to that. And so thank you guys so much for coming. We're so grateful to have you guys here. So both of you come on up. Help me just feel welcome, make them feel welcome as they come. And
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, Josh and I were talking a little bit at dinner tonight, and he's like, I just don't envy you guys at all. You're traveling around. You're like supposed to be on your best behavior. Your kids are supposed to be on your best behavior, and they never are. And we just got to chatting about that. And I have to say that it's, despite the hard work that it is, and this is, I will say, the least favorite part of our job, it is encouraging to come out and see the body of Christ wherever it is, supporting each other and lifting each other up and encouraging each other. And we know and can see that we are many members of one body who's serving the eternal King. And that is such a joy and just brings us such pleasure. So, yes, it's still hard. I don't like it, but I love getting together with brothers and sisters and seeing that. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm not preaching at you guys. You don't want me to preach at you. You want Josh to preach at you. That's not my gift. So we're just going to tell stories.
Can I start?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, so 20 or so years ago, David and I met. We were in undergrad college in Seattle. We went to different schools, but we had mutual friends that were rock climbers. So they invited him and I separately to go down to Smith Rock, Oregon to go rock climbing together. And so we're in the car. Oh, you're in school, I'm in school. What are you going to school for? What do you want to do with your degree? And we both said we wanted to be doctors in a resource poor setting. And I thought, with no feelings attached, I just met this guy. But I thought, logically, I could marry this guy. He would live in a hut with me in Africa. And so it's just really cool how God has, that was more than 20 years ago. And God has definitely, it's not been a straight road, but God has definitely put us where we feel he has called us to be. So it's just kind of the history of how we ended up here in West Africa, in Bangalo.
And then we kind of added to...
We added to the family. We asked the kids if they wanted to come up and be introduced, and they were like, no. So that's when they look good. You'll see them later when they're in their real life forms. But we adopted 4 kiddos while we lived in Maine. And Noah's the oldest, Maria's the middle, and then the twins are 5 years old. So they're 10, 7, and 5. But God knew he gave us these specific children to go on this adventure with us. They're the best, adventurous, resilient little people that we could ask for. So that was part of God's plan too.
So you're probably wondering, okay, you saw this bulletin announcement, these missionaries from Gabon, and don't feel bad at all if you've never heard of Gabon. I had to Google map it when Samaritan's Purse told us that we were going there. So Gabon is a country located in Central Africa. It's kind of right.
They're telling me your mic's off. I'll help you.
It was on.
I might keep talking.
Did I flip it off?
So on the west coast of Africa, right at the equator. So it's really hot and humid pretty much all year round. really close to the Republic of Congo. Where the arrow is where our hospital is, and then you might not be able to see the star up on the northwest of the country is where the capital city is, the international airport is. So we drive for 8 hours to get down from the capital and the airport to the hospital. Or there's a little plane that when it's available and working, we use it to do medical evacuations, but we use it for traveling purposes too because it shortens our trip into 1 hour and 45 minutes. So that's really nice when we can use a little airplane.
It's kind of
You're
convenient that you have the only working mic. So, I want you to do just a little thought experiment with me. And let's say you or your child gets sick. They have a cough and they have a fever. And what do? You probably can maybe even message from your phone. You could probably message your doctor or the clinic instantly. Maybe you have Tylenol already in your counter. You could give them. Oh, but you need to go to the clinic. The person wants you to come in. Well, where's the clinic? Oh, it's maybe 5 minutes away, maybe 15 minutes away. Maybe if you live in a little bit more rural area, it could be a half an hour away. But it's a little different in Gabon. If your kid gets sick, it could be the decision of, are we gonna spend our money and time to walk to the nearest road so then we can get a taxi, and then, when we get to the hospital, which could be 4 hours, 40 hours, or maybe 4 days away, we have to spend money there. And, the hospital doesn't have a phone to call. And, I don't have credit on my cell phone to make that call anyway, because I didn't harvest enough peanuts to be able to sell back to the market. So access to healthcare in all of sub-Saharan Africa is a huge issue. And just to give you an overview of Gabon, it's a population of about 2.5 million, and there are about 6 physicians for every 10,000 people there. Compare that to the United States, that's about 26 for every 10,000. It does make a difference on healthcare. So when we look at some health indicators, maternal mortality and infant mortality are 2 big ones that we look at. Maternal mortality in Gabon is 227 per 100,000 live births. That number, at the bare minimum, the World Health Organization shoots for a goal of less than 70. The infant mortality in Gabon is 27, near 28. In the United States, it's 5.6, so per 1,000 live births. So you can just look at those kind of brief indicators, and they show you what a kind of health of Gabon, how poor it is, and how little people have access to healthcare. So that is part of the reason we're there, is to provide excellent healthcare. And we have the privilege and the joy of doing that in Jesus' name, and being able to share the gospel with all of our patients that come in, and with our coworkers, with our colleagues. And so that is why we're there. We're located at, Josie showed you the slide where that big red arrow was, really in the middle of the jungle. It is the second largest rainforest in the world, next to the Amazon. And you can see the hospital up there. That's an aerial view of it. And just a brief kind of tour of the hospital. This is the entrance to the hospital, and this is where the taxi drivers will drop off patients. And so those are the kind of buildings. On the right, you see the internal medicine clinic. On the left, we actually have a dental clinic, 2 trained dental technicians. And then if you move up the picture, there's a surgery clinic. And then at the very, very back is the surgery the operating rooms and the recovery room. What you can't see, a very important part of the hospital, to the left of the screen, is the maternity building. But praise God, we are in the middle of getting a new maternity building built. The designs have already been made, the funding's been established, and we'll hopefully be laying work on that in the next 2 years. So this is the pediatric ward with the picture on the left with a tree in it, and then the ophthalmology clinic where an American-trained ophthalmologist had really started this ophthalmology program from the ground up, and specifically established it to train other ophthalmologists. So we have currently 2 ophthalmologists. One was trained by Wendy Hoffman, our ophthalmologist, and he decided to stay and work with us. He's from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then we had our other ophthalmologist graduated, and he is now practicing in Liberia at a mission hospital with his family. So really exciting what God's doing there. Literally, patients come in blind, and they walk away seeing. Amen. And many of them walk away with spiritual sight. They find Jesus. So it's just such a huge encouragement. Like I said, it's difficult to get to the hospital. That's the only ambulance that I've seen in southern Gabon. And it's from our government hospital. So it's very difficult to, most patients have to walk or take a taxi. This is our container. So one of the huge things when I talk about the body being many members, there are hundreds of churches that will pack medical supplies and baby blankets, receiving blankets, onesies, all sorts of stuff, and then send them to a staging area where a church packs this container, and we get x-ray equipment, we get clinic ophthalmology, we get Samaritan's Purse will donate large medical items like scrub sinks. So all sorts of stuff comes in
Really?
this container.
A collaboration.
It's a huge collaboration.
Organizations, churches, individuals donating medical supplies and putting it on. Then there's a church in Omaha that literally receives everything and packs that container for us.
Yeah.
So a big, just a great big effort of all God's people getting that to us. It's really cool.
Awesome. And this is my fun part. So my role at Bongalo, I'm trained as a general surgeon, and I'm a faculty surgeon with an organization called the Pan-African Academy of Christian Surgeons. So that operates in 11 different countries. We have 23 programs, and we invite doctors who want to train as surgeons who are Christians. So they must have a faith profession to train at these sites, and we're one of the sites. They come in for a 5-year training program, very similar to a U.S. Surgical residency. And I have the joy of working with them for that amount of time, for those 5 years while they're here or there, but also the joy of discipling and being discipled by them. So we create intentional relationships with them. We have Bible studies together. I get to pray with them when they lose a parent, or when the things can be bad, and there's a lot that they go through. There's a lot that they see, and in those interactions, that discipleship is happening every day. Discipleship is happening in the operating room, at the clinic, at the patient, bedside, where we get to pray with patients and watch them just recognize the incredible healing power of God and how He has healed them because He so deeply loves them. And that is, it's just a privilege for me to be able to work with them. And I'm discipled by them too. It's just incredible that we get that opportunity, and we just have a long-term relationship with these surgeons, and watch them go on to other mission hospitals in Africa, and 2 of them who have graduated Bungalow have started residencies, have started similar programs at the hospitals that they're at now. So these are disciple-making disciples, not only training excellent surgeons, but making disciples, proclaiming the name of Jesus, and getting to see people come into the kingdom through the work that they're doing is incredible. So that's our residency. I do want to really point out the woman on the left side of the screen, Jen O'Connor, and then her husband, the white gentleman on the right side of the screen, Zach O'Connor. They're a husband, wife. They're both general surgeons, and they have been there for 12 years. He's the chief of surgery and the program director, and Jen's the assistant program director of our program. And they've just been incredibly committed, and just wanted to point them out. The rest of everyone else is our resident, except the gentleman on the far left is a gastroenterologist who comes and he helps train the residents once a year. And then this is the graduation of our most recent resident, Asaf Elbam, and he is going to Chad, which is incredible. I can't go to Chad without risking my life. I wouldn't take my family to Chad because it's a pretty incredible risk, but Asaf, he's from Chad, he has the relationships there. He can go into Chad, he can work in a mission hospital, he can proclaim Jesus' name, and he's not quote unquote free to do that, but he's accepted much, much more readily. And so that is just it was a huge thing and just really encouraging to us. So, and so I also participate obviously in patient care really closely every day. I am training surgeons, but in order to train them, I need to be able to demonstrate good patient care. And I want to tell this story quickly because it's one in which God really just showed his faithfulness, not only to the patient, but also to us. I did not want to operate on this patient. She came in and I said, I am not operating on you. She was a 21-year-old female. She had this mass growing for the last 5 years. She was incredibly malnourished, and I was afraid that if I even put her under anesthesia, I would kill her. Which you can see, I had much, much too high view of myself. What I did is we asked her to get a CT scan in the capital city, but that's prohibitively expensive, and there was no way that the family was going to do that. And I saw that, and I said, okay, I want you to go to your village. I want you to eat as well as possible for the next 2 weeks, and I want you to have your entire village and your church pray for you. I want you to pray that we can do this surgery and that God will bring you through this surgery. And she came back 2 weeks later, and and we scheduled her for surgery. And I remember waking up the morning of the surgery, Josie.
He was sitting at the breakfast table like, I don't want to do this. I do not want to go to work today.
And just praying like, God, please let this woman live, because I don't see any other options. She can't afford to go to the Capitol. This tumor is going to keep growing, and it will kill her eventually. But he just put it on my heart, no, do this. And we talked to our good friend who's also an OB-GYN, and she's in that other picture. And she said, yeah, I think you should go forward with it. And she agreed to help me. And we did the surgery, and the surgery went incredibly smoothly. And she came back for a 2-week follow-up and was doing great. And it was a huge testimony to her village. She was able to just say, hey, look, I didn't know if I was going to make it through surgery. The surgeons didn't know if I was going to make it through surgery, which is something you don't want to hear as a patient. But God carried her through that. So that was just a huge testimony, not only to the patient, but to me as well. And so encouraging at what God is doing. And then this one doesn't have as good of short-term outcome, But this is a baby with omphalocele, which is most of your intestines are outside of your abdomen when you're born. There's a sac that covers them and protects them, but it's associated with some congenital anomalies like cardiac defects. But I knew we could treat this baby for the omphalocele, and we could get the baby fed and eating. So we got an NG tube down, and we started taking care of this baby. The mom wanted nothing to do with the baby, and wouldn't breastfeed, would hardly touch her. And Josie was witnessing some of this. I was down there often, or every day, just trying to make sure that this baby was well taken care of. And during the process, during about a week-long process, the mother started holding the baby and taking care of the baby. On day 8, that baby died. But I had the pleasure of being there with her, praying with her, and while that child died, and she knew that she was not alone. And there was the love of God with her through the nurses that had taken care of this baby, through what Josie was doing, through what our whole team was doing. And I was able to pray with her, and she was, you could tell, she was it touched her that someone cared so deeply about her and this baby, and she knew that God was there and present in that moment. And so I tell that because it's not always easy, and you have to walk through dark places, and you have to be willing to do that and be open to God's Spirit moving through those places. So there's a ton of awesome stories, but these stories are important to tell. This is not our work. This is what God is doing, and He is going to bring people into the kingdom through it, and He is the one that is giver and taker of life, and we don't have control over that. I wasn't going to kill that patient on the operating room table. I don't have that much control. I think way too highly of myself if I think that. But God is there, and He's present, and He's working, and we have. In the setting that we're at, it takes an incredible amount of faith to reach out in those situations, and God continues to teach us that every day. Oh, and now I get to hand it off to Josie.
Yeah, so sometimes we get to work together. So I get to work in maternity. I'm training midwives, training nurses, and taking care of the very little or very sick babies. So I'm not a neonatologist in the United States. I'm a family practice naturopathic doctor and midwife. But in Gabon, I fill the spots that need to be filled. And here, when we arrived, it was taking care of the really tiny babies. So the baby in that last picture is actually doing really well, but he was a twin, and so we needed extra hands when I was there. But the baby here on the left, she was not doing well. Mama needed an emergency C-section. They gave her general anesthesia, and then in the time it took to get the baby out, baby got too much meds and had didn't have any signal to breathe because she had too much medication. So I spent a good amount of time resuscitating that baby. There's a little bag that you squeeze to push the air into their lungs. And so we took this picture because I was so happy the baby finally decided to breathe. But that's in general what I do, is to take care of the preemies and the babies that need extra help. On the right, we have our midwives in training. So we have a 3-year nursing school program, and then when they graduate from the nursing school, 3 of them chose to go on to become midwives, and so I got to help train them. And then while I'm here, the OB-GYN, who's also a missionary from the US, is finishing their training program. So that's really a joy. Part of our training is a Bible study. So I meet with them once a week to do Bible study, as well as training how to resuscitate a baby and general normal pregnancy and things like that. The next one you can go to, this is the equipment we have to work with. It's a wooden box with light bulbs in it to keep the babies warm. So where the little cupboard is on the bottom, there's light bulbs down there, and you can increase the temperature by 1, 2, or 3 light bulbs turning on. There's a plexiglass cover that keeps the mosquitoes out. Malaria is a big problem where we live. And so the wooden boxes actually work really well. Our electricity is kind of on and off, very fluctuant. So one of those fancy high-tech incubators like the hospitals have here in their NICUs doesn't work well there. We had one donated and it shorted out. It's in the storage room now. But these wooden boxes work really well. On the right are 2 warming tables that we do use for the babies that need more intensive care or more just observation and a nurse more readily available. But we have 2 warming tables, and in this case we had 2 sets of twins. So we actually have 4 babies on those 2 warming tables to keep track of all of them at once. But it works. We feed the babies breast milk or formula, but it's basically a straw from a syringe that goes down their nose and into their stomach. Very low tech, works really well. So this is a mama of twins feeding both of her preemies there. We have a lot more preemies because of malnutrition and malaria. Those both cause preterm labor. I need to get the stats, but I know our hospital doesn't keep track of stats. That's on my list of projects I'd love to do. So even if I looked up the stats of preemies in Gabon, I'm not sure they would be accurate numbers, but I do know we have a lot more cases of premature babies in Gabon than we did here when I was in practice. One of the very exciting things that I got to do with another organization, African Mission Healthcare, they gave us money to take 2 midwives to this conference in Tanzania, which is all the way on the east side of Africa. And it was a neonatology conference. So doctors and nurses from all over Africa learning how to best take care of our tiniest patients. And this was so encouraging to us, not only for my nurses to meet other doctors and nurses in Africa, but for them to see positive outcomes from taking care of the little babies. I think one of the biggest things that bothered me when we first got there is a preemie would be born and left on the warming table and wouldn't really get the care they needed. It's intense. They need to be fed every 2 or 3 hours. They need their blood sugars checked. Sometimes they're having trouble breathing. You try a couple different things to help them breathe. And the nurses might each have 20 patients to take care of, moms and babies, either that aren't born yet or that have just been born or that are in labor. So taking care of the preemies wasn't their priority. And they would say, well, the baby's just gonna die anyway. And one of their arguments, which was true, if mama has to spend 2 weeks in the hospital and the baby dies anyway, then she goes home with a big bill or doesn't go home until the big bill is paid. Meanwhile, there are children at home that can't eat because now they have this big hospital bill. Big being, it's less than $50 for a whole month of care for these preemie babies. But for them, that's a lot of money. So what we decided is we're gonna take care of these babies no matter what. And if the babies don't make it, I will pay the bill. And if they do make it, then the mamas and their families will have something worth paying the hospital bill for. And sometimes we help with those bills too. But I was not willing to decide whether or not this baby was gonna live or not. Again, I felt like that wasn't my job, that's God's job. And so I was gonna do everything that I could do, and if mama ended up with a big bill, I would take care of it. So we have a benevolence fund for the hospital, and we've used some of our funds from Samaritan's Purse to be able to help with those bills. But when we came back from this conference, all of my nurses and midwives were really on board with helping these babies. They saw the hope in it. They had more tools, and they saw the hope in taking care of these little babies. So I feel like it's been such an encouragement that they not only saw me willing to put the time and effort into taking care of the babies, willing to put the money into taking care of these babies, but then they came back from this conference with tools and hope that doctors and nurses all over Africa are taking care of preemies, and preemies are getting to go home. So that has just been so encouraging and a huge gift of God and highlight of my last 2 years. So on the left, you'll see this is one of our graduates. So this little preemie was in the hospital for about 2 months and got up to 2 kilos. So 2 kilos is 4.4 pounds. That's all. They're usually born like around 1 kilo, 1.5 kilos, so 2.2 to 3 pounds. And they have to get up to 4.4 before they can go home. So they're still very tiny when they go home, but I think it's really, I take a picture of every single graduate. I just love when they finally get to go home. And then the picture on the right is to show you just how small these little people are. My hands are not very big, and you can see that's my hand that this little baby has a hold of. So they're super tiny little people, but just for us to love them like God's children, and not to abandon them because they need more care or they're harder to take care of. So besides the maternity department, I also get the privilege of praying and living next to these ladies. These are the wives of all the surgery residents. So, the surgeons move to Bungalow and they get to train with David and the other surgeons, and their wives are there with their families. They're not in their home country. Some of them can work kind of on the side, but we can't officially hire them in Gabon. But they're just lovely women and lovely families that I get to do a Bible study with once a week, along with the other wives, Jen and one of the other surgeons' wives. So it's a really neat group of ladies. This was the graduation, the most recent graduation. We also try to have fun. So this is our family going on a bike ride. We're out in the jungle. If you continue down that road about 6 miles, there's another little village. But we just try to enjoy as much as we can where we live. So
Someone's not having fun in that picture.
well, the little girl in the pink has quite a face, but she does have fun. We also have a swimming pool where we live, which is not super fancy, but really nice because it does get really hot. And they have a co-op school. They have a teacher that they love. So I think, as a family, it's really where we feel God has called us to be. The next slide's our prayer points, right?
Yep.
So one prayer request that we have the privilege of getting that container once a year where we also can put like American peanut butter and some of our favorite treats on that container. It comes once a year. We have a teacher there who's really great with our children, but we cannot get Gabonese doctors to come out and live in the jungle and provide medical care at this hospital. They would be compromising their children's education. It's real rural. The education that's available is really limited. There are no amenities, no fun things to go do, very few restaurants, and restaurant would be a loosely used term for where you can go to get food in someone else's house. But so there's really, it's not exciting, and except for us it is because it's the jungle. But for the Gabonese, most of the doctors live in the capital city. They make more money there, their kids have better education there. So we're just praying for doctors to come and work at this hospital, and it would have to be a calling of God. They would not be doing it to their own advantage. It would really have to be that they are called by God to serve here at this hospital. But we're also just praised that we've been healthy and have really enjoyed our first term being at this hospital. There are definitely challenges, but we really enjoy the work that God has given us, and we really would like to see that work go forward. So just praise for that, and strength for our team that's there at Bungalow now. So when we're not there, there are other people doing their jobs and our jobs. And now a couple of them have COVID at the moment. So there's a couple of people doing even more jobs. So just pray for the team at Bungalow that's there right now. We have really excellent local nurses and midwives, but there's just the one ophthalmologist that is African and the residents, and the rest of the doctors are Americans. And so we would love for more doctors to come and work there, but strength for the doctors that we do have there now.
So before we give our sales pitch, if you will, I do want to take some time for questions because it is a really good time for questions, and we love hearing the questions. It usually is very fruitful. So if you have questions, we'd really like to hear those.
What is the language?
It's French. So there are about 34 different tribal languages in Gabon, plus or minus, but almost everyone speaks French.
You do at the hospital?
Yep. with the exception of our residents who need to take exams in English. So they all train in English. So all of the teaching that we do is in English for the residents, the surgery residents. All of the interaction with any other staff is in French. Yep.
Since it is equatorial with the heat and the humidity, you say you get 1 container a year. How do you manage medications?
So we do have medication orders. We actually order meds from Germany and Belgium, and we have a climate-controlled facility specifically for the medications. So the medications do not come in on the container. They are shipped to us, or we get them via air that comes down through the Capitol.
Now, to prepare the medications for the patients, whether it's surgery or neonatal or post-op, whatever,
Mhm.
Do you have a pharmacist or a pharmacist that does that?
We don't.
Would you like to join us?
Yeah.
You're taking volunteers, right?
You mentioned intermittent power. You guys have solar. Like, how do you run the light bulbs in the incubator when the power's off?
Yeah, there's a generator that can run when the power goes off, and right now it's running full time. With the river flooded, and there's usually a hydroelectric plant, and we get energy for free from the hydroelectric plant that's on the hospital property. But this hydroelectric plant is actually maintained by the government and powers the whole, like a 4-hour radius from this river. But in December, the river flooded, broke a turbine in the hydroelectric plant, and so we've been running on this generator since December,
Yeah.
which is very expensive and does supply power to the hospital, but it's not meant to run that often. So they've had a lot of power cuts even still, where the light bulbs and the oxygen, more importantly, have been a big problem when we can't keep the generator working.
Yep.
That should be another prayer request. We were really hoping that this would be resolved by now, but yeah, you can pray for the power to be restored. That would be great.
Yep.
What originally brought you to Skavdahls? Was it a survey trip with another missions organization, or how did you get there?
Yeah, we didn't. So we applied for a program with Samaritan's Purse. It's a 2-year program. Well, for the rest it was 3 years. And Samaritan's Purse works with hospitals all throughout the world. It's called World Medical Mission. And they know the needs of all these hospitals. So we were accepted in that program. We worked directly with, I was an employee of Samaritan's Purse for a 2-year time period. And they basically chose the hospital. They put out the needs to these hospitals, say, what kind of doctor do you need? Do you need an emergency room doctor? Do you need an anesthetist? And then the hospitals put their request back. And there were 2 that they had given the choice of, and we chose to go to Gabon. We hadn't
After
done
we
it.
Googled it.
Yeah, after we Google mapped it. Part of the decision making on our end of that was we knew there was an established training program that was really important for us, for me to be teaching surgery and not just doing it. I love doing surgery. It's like one of the most exciting things for me. But I wanted to make sure that we're training people while we do that. For Josie, it was a little different story. We didn't know what she was going to do when we got there. The staff at the hospital, before we got there, actually told her, you know what, you're not going to have a clinical role. There's basically a lot going on in maternity, and you probably won't be working clinically. And so we, in faith, went anyway. And during our language training, someone left the maternity department. A new person entered, the OB that we currently work with, and the situation changed drastically. And there was a huge need for her. And then with the neonatology and neonatal care, it's now kind of forefront, and it's just been a really neat opportunity. So, absolutely.
It's been good.
How do you protect yourself from malaria?
We take we put bug spray on this.
Always.
Not to get bitten, but we take prophylaxis. So
So weekly, we have to take anti-malarial meds. Some families take it every day. It just depends on the medicine that you take. But for our kids, it's easier to do it once a week with a stronger med.
yeah.
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 Do you see yourself adopting more children?
Oh, good question. No. No,
I was fairly certain we agreed on that answer.
right? He wants to turn my mic up. No, I love our children so much, but I think, we do feel that we are in a good position to do the work that we're called to do, and I think that in different circumstances, and with different children, it wouldn't be, and so there are, I think wonderful families and children that need extra care, extra education, special needs particularly, that I wouldn't feel right taking them to this resource corps setting. They wouldn't have their needs met. And so I am thankful. I mean, we even had a cavity that we had a hard time taking care of over there, and just felt really bad that we couldn't do the right thing for our kid without making her wait to get back to the US, So I think that for the family we have, I wouldn't officially adopt more children. That being said, we have like 20 kids that come to our house every day and play with us and get snacks and filtered water
And call you mom.
And call me mom. They do. And so I'm Mama Josie there. And so in a less formal way, I've adopted the village children.
Yes,
Kind of. Any other questions? Our least favorite part is the finance part.
So keep asking
But
questions.
you knew this was coming, right? So we went from being on a payroll at Samaritan's Purse to needing to raise 100% of our money to go back. And so this is covering plane tickets for us to get back there, food while we're there. The money, I was trying to explain it in our budget. There's money that just goes, and that's money that is to help people buy food, to help pay for hospital bills. I do try to be really careful about this. We really feel like we'd rather, teach a man to fish instead of giving them the fish, is what I was saying at dinner. But we do
Have a benevolence fund.
have our own benevolence
Yeah.
fund at home where we can help support people if they need money for funeral expenses, gifts for weddings, even, just to be part of the society. It needs also contributing financially. So we have about 20% of our total needs that are already coming in on a monthly basis, which leaves us with like $9,000 per month that we need to raise. And that just feels like a huge amount to me, knowing that we lived in the US with less than that for income. But a lot of it is the travel, and the food is not cheaper there, unfortunately. Lots of it is imported, and what's grown locally is like peanuts, manioc root, and greens. I can only get the kids to eat so much of that. So that's our need. We just really feel like we are blessed to be able to do this work, and we wouldn't be able to do this without people here taking care of the churches here, taking care of the people here. I love the men's lunch and the women's lunch and the marriage class, and just that work that you're doing as a church community. If we felt like that wasn't happening here, we wouldn't be able to go overseas and do more work, and so it's really neat to see how you all are taking care of each other in your church body here. But like David said, if we're the feet of God and you're the hands of God, we can all work together as one body to share God's love all over. So that's how we feel about the work we're doing. It's not just us, it's you doing this work by helping us get back over there.
And just a little bit of background. So with the Samaritan's Purse, you might be wondering, well, you're talking about Samaritan's Purse a lot. We like to talk about them because they're an awesome organization. They do incredibly good things, and they've supported us for the last 3 years. We basically, everyone who is part of this program signs a paper that says, yes, we will no longer be working with you in 2 years. We need to find a different sending organization. It's very clear up front. We are now with Christian Health Service Corps, and there was a very long, prayerful process that we arrived there. But ultimately what we kind of came down to was that this organization, Christian Health Service Corps, knows how to take care of medical missionaries. And they might not have the resources like Samaritan's Purse does to do that, but they have the heart and they know how to take care of medical missionaries. And medical missionaries aren't special at all. They're just different. And they're different sort of mental health, spiritual health, and physical health needs in comparison with someone that's church planning or doing other work. So this organization, and this was confirmed to us during our orientation, that they were definitely the right organization for us, is who we're working with now. So all of our funding comes through them. I put all the website links, text links, etc., in the mailbox. All of that is on prayer cards that you will have access to. We're going to leave a bunch here. And then that QR code is a link for giving. But we want you to just prayerfully consider, like, do you want to be a part of this work? And if you do, fantastic. If you don't, fantastic. But that's our financing kind of agency, if you will, but our sending agency that really is committed to us, and they're very committed to you as well, and making sure that anything that you're donating is managed and stewarded very well. And then finally, I put this up here. You can get your phones out. Don't be afraid to. This is a QR code to an interest link, and what that will take you to a Google form. It'll ask for your email address. It's going to ask for your name, phone number, and then some questions. What are you interested in about the ministry at Bongalo Hospital? Are you interested in getting our quarterly newsletter? Are you interested in getting our prayer newsletter? Are you interested in coming out and serving at Bongalo? Are you interested in specific financial needs of the hospital, or are you interested in financially supporting our specific ministry? So don't
No
be afraid.
commitment. You're
Yeah,
just
no
getting the
commitment.
interest form
Exactly.
if you scan that
So,
QR code.
anyway.
It just deducted money from my bank account.
That's right.
It did that.
That's the special one.
Josh got special link. But yeah, even, I was just going to tease about, but coming out to Bongalo, for real, we have guest housing, and we have people that come out just to help us organize. You don't have to be a medical care provider. If you're a pharmacist, we could really use you. But we would help, any handy people that can fix things are great. People that like to organize, that'd be great. This container comes, we unload it as fast as possible so the truck can drive away, and we're left with a warehouse of boxes, and we need to figure out who needs what and what goes where. So that takes a whole year before the next container comes to get that done. So if you have an interest of just coming to visit, we would love to have you. We also have some fun stuff, jungle hikes, elephants, we'll make it fun for you.
Yeah. So, I think the reason that we're here and the reason we're in Gabon is the same reason you're here and that you're in Spokane, and it's for the King. It's for King Jesus, and we're all part of that. And Revelation 5 just really strikes me as something that is a beautiful thing to look forward to. And that is, worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation. And you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign forever. So just think of that moment, that you'll be worshiping with people from all over the world, from every tribe, every nation, and praising Jesus. Because that's what this work is about, and that's what our lives and your lives are about. So thanks for coming out, listening to us.